Hey everyone, and welcome back to the series that focuses on the persona of each of the P3 main characters and how it relates to the mythological figure it's based on. In this video, I'll be covering Ken's persona Nemesis, who later transforms into Kala-Nemi. Now let's dive right in. So Ken starts off with the persona Nemesis. Nemesis was the goddess of divine retribution in Greek mythology. She mainly pursued retribution for evil deeds, undeserved good fortune, and unchecked arrogance, even though the initial meaning of the word nemesis was much more neutral. It stems from the Greek word nemein, meaning to give what is due. Due to this definition, the term nemesis initially meant the distributor of one's fortune, and therefore was neither good nor bad, but simply in proportion to what was deserved. I find it incredibly fitting then that the mother of Nemesis is Nyx, the goddess of the night, who, as we know her, represents the final major arcana boss in P3, Death. So what exactly about this is fitting? Well, it's because death as a concept has gained an overly negative perception, just as the word nemesis and its connotation. This mythology behind Nemesis has clearly inspired Ken's main conflict in the game, which has to do with getting vengeance on the person who killed his mom. Just like the reverse of his tarot archetype, which happens to be the Justice, Ken goes about his pursuit of Shinji for the wrong reasons. Instead of wanting true objective fairness to be metered out, Ken's only concerned about his own bias and dealing his form of punishment to a person that he himself has deemed wicked. You can find more about his relation to the Justice Arcana in my video about P3 and the Fool's Journey linked above. The final example of how the Nemesis myth affects P3's story is the fact that this goddess was the mother of the twins Castor and Polydeuces. These two figures happen to be Shinji and Akihiko's initial personas, respectively. The whole situation that leads up to Shinji's death stems from the death of Ken's mom, and, by proxy, the surviving Ken himself as he seeks out his revenge. In this way, Ken basically gives birth to the scenario where Castor is fatally injured before his brother Polydeuces. More on the myth will be explained in the future videos of Shinji and Akihiko and how they were inspired by mythology. Now, turning to its design, Nemesis is quite clearly inspired by the more negative take on the term. The persona's figure is seen with a wide-set grin on its face, almost as if it's personally enjoying getting revenge, instead of staying as objective as possible. The color scheme of Nemesis also paints this picture of eerie or malicious judgment that is about to occur to the other party. It's oddly ironic given that divine retribution is normally imagined with a lighter color scheme that evokes a sense of the heavenly or holiness. The circle that wraps around the face of Nemesis is symbolic of the circular nature of retribution, probably best highlighted by the phrase, "What goes around comes around." This circle also separates the figure into two halves, just as there are always two sides to a situation that must be considered and deliberated before justice can be dealt. As for its moveset, the standouts are Hama and Hamaon. I can think of no better representation of divine retribution than a light-based attack that can instant kill. Cruel attack, vile assault, and the other physical attacks are also fitting, since receiving what's due can feel very cruel indeed. On the other hand, Ken's healing skills are a reflection on this duality of how one can experience good fortune as well. And finally, the fact that Nemesis's stats are so balanced is reminiscent of the balancing scales of justice. So now we can move on to Ken's ultimate persona, Kala-Nemi. Kala-Nemi was a demon called Rakshasas in Hindu mythology and is known to have went through various reincarnations. It was said that he was cursed to being reborn as an evil being 3 times before he finally achieved MOKSHA, which is when one achieves enlightenment and is freed from the cycle of karma. The one thing that tied all of Kala-Nemi's reiterations together was his connection to Vishnu, the Hindu preserver god. Vishnu protects the universe from destruction and keeps it going. Sounds sort of familiar, right? In a similar sense, the Persona 3 protag prevented the death of all of humanity and continues to keep this at bay by serving as the Great Seal. So how does this all relate to Ken, you ask? Well, Vishnu's 8th avatar, Krishna, killed the final reincarnation of Kala-Nemi, Kamsa. This is when the latter achieved moksha by dwelling on the divine influence of Krishna as he lay dying. Just as Kala-Nemi achieves enlightenment through Vishnu's influence, Ken turns away from his selfish view of justice, aka vengeance, by following the influence of the protag, and all of cease as they protect humanity from the shadows. When it comes to the persona's design, the spherical and wheel-like structures around the main body is a reference to the pre-Vedic spirit form of Kala-Nemi. Kala means time, and Nemi means the feli, aka the exterior portion of a wheel. This is why he was referred to as the rim of the wheel of time, and was tied closely to the zodiac, as is represented by the symbols on Kala-Nemi's arms. Kala-Nemi's lack of any facial features is symbolic of his enlightenment. The Hindu demon is no longer subjected to another life, one as a cruel being at that. I mean, just look at how malicious Nemesis looks, right? Kala-Nemi's faceless design may also be symbolic of true objective justice, and the transformation from the reverse justice arcana to the upright reading. Ken no longer sees through eyes clouded by his own personal bias or feelings, but he now takes other perspectives and evidence into account before making a decision. The best example of this is seen in The Answer, where Ken reacts with level-headedness and the desire to understand the truth behind the MC's death. And even when Yukari becomes agitated and accusatory of him and Akihiko, Ken never responds with personal animosity, showing just how far he's come since confronting Shinji. He no longer dwells on what has happened in the past. I mean, his mother's passing occupied his entire life, to the point where he was planning on committing suicide after avenging her, since that was the only thing he was living for. Fast forward to The Answer, and he's grown to believe that they should focus on the present instead of trying to redo the battle with Nyx. Sorta like how Kala-Nemi finally achieved enlightenment and would no longer have to relive similar events in another repeat cycle of life. Well, as fun as it is to draw meaning and comparisons from these many myths, it's hard to tell just how intentional all of the symbolism really is on the designers and developers' end. But it won't stop me from having my fun with it though. And that's a wrap on Ken's personas. If this was enjoyable, please like it, share it, and comment to let me know how you see Nemesis and Kala-Nemi. And if you like Japanese media in general, feel free to join our active Discord server. Link is below. The next analysis in this series will examine Shinji and Koromaru's personas, the only 2 party members whose personas never evolve. So consider subscribing so you don't miss out. And until next time, take care. See ya!